You are the most welcome to Abomey. And before the resurgence of the European colonial rule in Africa, Africa was the land of prominent kingdoms, empires, and chiefdoms. And in the west part of Africa and in Benin, one of these very kingdoms was the kingdom of Dahomey, whose founders came from neighboring Togo, settling first in Alada. We drove through Alada. So many of you were having a nap, so I did not want to disturb you. So when they first settled at Alada, though there were three brothers, they were having problems of staying together. So they got to this very wise decision that they should actually part from one another, everyone going to seek for a settlement for himself. So one of them came to this plateau over here that was primarily the land of the Gedevi people. Gedevi, that is Guedevi. And the Gedevi got settled with a king in the name of Dan, D-A-N. So when those from Alada arrived, for sure they needed lands to settle and do their farming. So they went to their host and asked for land. What was not refused, but they kept on asking for more and more and more. This would actually upset the natives of the land, the Gedevi. Then a war outbroke between them and the newcomers. Unfortunately, King Dan was killed. And then the newcomers started building their palace or their first house on his tomb. So that's the name Dahomey, meaning in the stomach of Dan. And then making of Abomey the center of this very kingdom, they said every king should be building his palace close to that of his predecessor. And then they had the idea to dig trenches around the very occupation, that is the very place, the very site of today's Abomey. And Agbo in Fon, that is the language that is mostly spoken in Benin, Fon, F-O-N. Trench means Agbo, and Abomey, that is surrounded by the trenches. That's the name Abomey. As the Europeans could not pronounce B. B is a palatal, just like B. So they, instead of Abomey, they say Abomey. It is the same way when I have Akapo, they will be calling Akapo in their language. So there had been 12 kings from 1645 till 1900 that succeed one another to the throne. And as it is set as a custom that every king should be having a new palace from 1645 till 1900, the palaces, not Abomey, not the kingdom, just the palaces covered 44 hectares and over. But as everything is built in mud, there are rains, there have been climatic, disorders. So many of these very palaces got destroyed. And two of them, that of the 9th king, King Gezo, and the 10th, his son, King Glele, have actually been kept and restored into what is today the Historic Museum of Abomey. As I said much earlier, that is part of the World Heritage Sites. Questions so far?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I keep seeing that there's so many sites in this region that are being named UNESCO. Do you know about anything that's why? Because I know we're in the decade of reparations, so what are the politics that are happening so that this particular history is being reclaimed and preserved as part of UNESCO? Because UNESCO means United Nations. So
yeah.
What's happening that's also the World
All
Bank?
right. Okay. We talked of, for example, the bas-reliefs. It is a technique that is unique. We also talked of the appliques. And also, we have the importance of this kingdom in the political organization of West Africa. We also have the role that this kingdom played in terms of how the Europeans were welcomed to some parts of West Africa. And as you could see, the fall of this kingdom was actually the beginning of the French colonial intervention into the land. And it was also a kingdom with a very elaborate organization. We have ministers of agriculture, ministers of trade, minister of defense, we have prime ministers, we have the organization even of the troops, without actually forgetting of the women warriors that we call the Amazons. So this very kingdom was very prominent. That actually made, UNESCO, that is one of the educational branches of the United Nations, to recognize this very place as part of World Heritage.
Thank you.
The natural resources of this very kingdom, and so to say, the wealth of the kingdom mostly and primarily relied on agriculture. As we were coming to Abomey, you could see a lot of fruits by the roadside. They also made a lot of cultivation of oil palm. They also produced a lot of sweet potatoes, a lot of cassava, a lot of corn, a lot of millet, and also they have one particular tree around here that whose seeds are processed into a very good mustard. That is also one particularity of Abomey. So the world really relied mostly on agriculture, though sometime in history, some of the kings participated in the Atlantic slave trade. While we were in Ouidah, after we had visited the fort, we drove past the house of Francisco Felicio de Souza. I do not know if you could recall that name. That Portuguese of Brazilian origin. He was even friend to one of these Dahomey kings. And in the process of our visit, we'll see that that very merchant even donated a whole building to that very king, as he was his friend and he was the one protecting him to be able to carry out the trade on the coast of Ouida. Yes. Questions?
So
Yeah.
the Dahomey people were a traveling people, because where we were yesterday, it was also a place for the Dahomey.
Yeah, you know, their authority, you know, stretched out to all these very lands.
Okay.
It was a very big kingdom. When we get inside now, you happen to see, you know, the extension of this very kingdom before 1900. And at times, they even went into the Yoruba land that we have to the east, attacking them, taking up their lands as well. And even their domination went up till some parts of today's Togo. So it was a very strong kingdom. Further questions? Shall we start? Okay.